right, three, two, one. Hey there guys. So in this video, what I'm going to be looking at with you guys today is we're going to be looking at exactly how to use both your yellow and your pink bottles together. One of the biggest difficulties people typically have with their yellow bottles is they don't really know when to use them. The delay makes it a little bit harder to kind of learn because in addition to thinking in the moment on knowing when to get your yellow bottle out, I mean, it's not just about when to place it or where to place it. It's also how do you pick up the yellow bottle and capitalize off of the speed's value. This is typically an area of difficulty for people when it comes to picking up their usage, and that is what we're going to be looking at in this video. I've got my notes with me on my right, so bear with me. I am trying to do this in one take, so I hope I'm not like speaking too fast. I'm going to kind of try to slow down a bit how quickly I talk, but this is typically just how normally I speak to get my thoughts out. But anyways, before we get started with these examples, it's very important that we get to understanding some terms again. We rebuff on these terms. This video is going to be incorporated in the guide if you're seeing it early. So I am going to be looking to probably release this to a couple people early. But this video is going to follow some very important terms in the guide, and it's very important that we just re-go over them before we actually dive into these examples, just for ease. So first things first, we're going to be looking at courses of action in particular. These are the most important. This is basically the execution of your bottle combos. When you are taking a survivor to a pallet loop, you're not going to be playing out the execution of your bottles the exact same way. The formation of the structures, whether it's the walls, whether it's the way the pallet is shaped, there's actually, I think, a big deal depending on how the pallet falls down, because it typically kind of indicates how the loop itself will be structured, so you kind of have to pay attention to that. The distance between you and the survivor, that's also a big deal. Are they on the opposite side of a loop? If a loop has a structure here, pallet in the middle, or rather, you know what I mean, if they're on this side and you're on this side, that's a big difference than if they're right here. It's about proximity to the pallet, okay? So your course of action, in essence, is going to be a string of actions that you are going to incorporate into a process of getting a hit on a survivor. To contrast this to how an M1 killer may typically play, an M1 killer typically runs at the survivor. You reach, let's say, like a jungle gym, let's say a LT wall. You may chase them around one corner of the side, and then like, okay, I'm going to pull back. Maybe I sit at the side of the wall. These are all steps of a process, right? You don't just down a survivor and chase. You have to think of a strategy, a tactic when you get to certain tiles and structures, and that's a very watered down version of what we're going to be looking at, because when you're playing clown, the courses of action are much more involved on account of how you have to use your bottles together. After a course of action, pallet possession. There are a couple of examples, I believe, in here that do not have pallets that are already dropped before the example starts, but pallet possession is a very important part of this. Pallet possession, in essence, revolves around a pallet that has not been dropped yet. It doesn't matter if it's already been dropped and it's been kicked. Once a pallet has been dropped, because, you can't really, kicking can only really come after it has been dropped. Once it hits that ground, that pallet has no possession factors to it. If the survivor drops the pallet, that means they're vulnerable to getting hit on that pallet. Possession of the pallet revolves around the ability for a survivor to stun you. If you eat that pallet stun, that's typically enough time for survivors to create distance, and depending on the structure of the shape of the pallet and the loop itself, as well as proximity to other tiles, this will ultimately result in you extending your chase by maybe 10 to 15 seconds, right? So ultimately, when it comes to pallet possession, it's about understanding the threat that comes with the pallet stun and having to play around the survivor's proximity to the pallet. One of the best ways I kind of like to visualize possession of the pallet is like a circle around where the pallet actually resides. So like, for example, we have in this video that's paused right here, we have this yellow aura right here. Shortly in this area, like right outside this pallet, we're stunned. We can get stunned, right? So it's very important that when it comes to setting up, even in this example right here, that we do not eat this pallet stun. If well, typically though, I will say, as far as examples go, when it comes to pallet stuns, this pallet right here, you probably can't do anything about because it is positioned in a corner. But that is ultimately, excuse me, like semi besides the point. The main point is really that if you eat a stun at other areas, you are going to have problems when it comes to closing distance on survivors. So, pallet possession. Next is concession of the pallet. So, as I was just saying, pallet possession revolves around a zone area of where the pallet resides. Survivors, typically, you will come across survivors that do what's called camping the pallet, where they sit right on top of the pallet. They're expecting to force you into a catch-22, where if you do nothing, you can't reach them because of the threat of the pallet. And if you try to swing into them, you eat the pallet stun, right? Or let's say you don't. You just get them to drop the pallet. Sorry, all my nose is driving me crazy. I'm probably going to be like scratching on it a couple times throughout this. But the idea behind this is, behind concession of the pallet, is that instead of camping the pallet like this, they use the threat of the stun against you. They are basically greeting their resources, is what concession of the pallet is in a nutshell. So let's say I'm chasing a survivor at a pallet loop, and they do not drop that pallet. They go to the other side. There's enough distance that allows that to happen. I haven't exactly set up my double bottles yet. Once they concede that pallet, I can set up my yellow either on the pallet or near that pallet. I can set up, it's going to be obviously dependent on the shape of the structure of the pallet loop. I can set up my yellow bottle once they break away from that zone, that area of possession, where they will not reach that pallet again. Once I throw my yellow bottle down, and then I throw my pink bottle down after they've left that pallet but they're still at that loop, the combination of speed means that that choice that they had of, well, maybe I'll come back to it later, you know, I'm not going to throw down the pallet now, I'm going to get one more loop in, that's not going to be available to them. You punish them for greeting their resources. And lastly, there's one other point before we do kind of look to get started, pretty soon at least, is going to be slicing the tile. Slicing the tile is basically how you cut off a survivor from going to certain points of the map. When you chase a survivor to a pallet tile, a really easy way to think about it is, if you take a survivor to a pallet tile, and let's say they drop the pallet early, and you just stand still, you just don't move. Typically, what's the survivor going to do? They're not going to move either, right? Because if they just leave, you know, they don't have the safety of the pallet, whichever way that they go. They're going to be waiting on you to make a move, and then they're going to try to punish that. Maybe either by vaulting the pallet, forcing you to kick it, because now they will be on the other side when they try to approach, or just try to go all the way around anyways, and they just like mind game and they loop it anyways. There are all different types of ways that survivors are going to be essentially waiting on you to make the move, and that is where slicing the tile kind of comes into play. Because in the same way that even if you're doing nothing and you're standing at that pallet loop around that pre-drop pallet, you've cut them off, right? Sure, you're not really creating anything off of it because you're not doing anything, but that survivor can't go anywhere. Now, where this relates to Clown is that Clown is able to take these situations. These are essentially microcosms of a bigger picture. Clown is able to take these situations where you have a survivor at a pallet loop and you're able to get that hit. They pre-drop that pallet, right? And your positioning on the other side of where they are means that they're stuck at that pallet. And then when you throw down your yellow bottle, and then you throw down your pink, they don't really have much option, because if they try to abandon the tile, you're going to catch them with the yellow. Maybe you hit another pink afterwards, you throw it as they abandon the tile. Or they run the loop and they get hit. But let's talk about that, running the loop as the alternative. That is essentially the scope of what I mean by slicing the tile. you kind of want to think of yourself as like a knife. You know what I mean? Specifically, slice. The area within the tile, when I say slicing the tile, that is the zone of safety that a survivor has. Let me real quick pull up a chase blueprint example. This will hopefully make this a bit easier. This is probably an area, or this is something I think really does need a picture example here. Okay, in a nutshell, this is just a quick one right here. I think this should show it properly. So let me even zoom in a bit. This is actually on the guide, so I do need to. I don't want to get too much of this out early. Give me just a sec here. What am I even doing? I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to zoom in here, y'all. Remember, we're doing this in one take. Okay. All right. Okay. We're gonna try this here. So what we've got right now is look at this little example right here. These 4 crosses of the green lines. This is the area that the survivor has in safety, because once we start moving, these lines shift and the safety changes, right? So like right here, I'm going to really quick explain this in a nutshell. This is us reloading. We're getting ready to set up. We throw our yellow as we get ready to reload. Step 3, we move around. This area opens up, so they're able to have a bit more room of safety. And then when we come around from the other side, it's the same thing. It opens up as well, right? Because as we start to approach from the other side of the loop, what that means is that we don't have control over the other side. But the sheer fact of our positioning, look at this square, right? The sheer fact of our positioning means that she can't really leave this area, because as it is right now, as we stand right here, she can get hit. She's vulnerable when she gets outside of this one little area. That is the tile we have sliced, okay, gang? Again, that is the tile we have sliced everywhere outside of that boundary. Now let's focus back to the video here. Hold on, I gotta zoom back out. Before we actually do, we are about to get started. I know, this is a lot of preemptation before the real examples, but you know, this is a video breakdown part of the bigger picture here. The last area we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at bottle functions, okay? Now that we kind of have that down, let me real quick go over to bottle functions, because understanding the principles behind how you use the yellow bottles on papers is how you really start to look at with the examples. So your yellow and your pink bottles are essentially tools, okay? You know, tools are meant to do a job. You don't use the wrong tool for the wrong job. You know, you don't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail. You don't use a hammer to screw in a screw. You know what I mean? Because they don't do that. You want to use the tools that you have properly. And the best way that I find to interpret these tools, your yellows and your pink bottles, is your yellow bottles are initiators, and your pink bottles, what is the word that I use? They're finishers. You don't typically end with a yellow bottle. The only time you're going to be ending with a yellow bottle typically is because you don't really have a lot of bottles left. You know, you're trying to get very efficient use of your remaining bottle count, or because you just do not need a pink bottle. You know, there's kind of like that threshold, and that kind of goes back to efficiency as well. But there is seldom going to be any time in a chase where you are using a yellow bottle as the finisher. Typically, you use the yellow bottle to initiate. And every single one of these examples, by the way, that we look at, every single one of these examples has the yellow bottle being used as an initiator. All right. Now, the pink bottles are your finishers. The reason, what makes pink bottles good finishers is that they apply a stronger slow reduction, or rather, let's say when it comes to closing distance, they are more effective during the interim at closing distance than your yellow bottles. Yellow bottles allow you to close more distance over the period that they are active, which is what makes them more efficient than pink bottles. But pink bottles, during a smaller window of time, are stronger than your yellows. So not only that, of course, they activate instantly. Your yellow bottles, you can't really use them as an executioner so much because of the delay. Forgot to really touch on that. That is really where the whole efficiency point comes in. They cover more distance, but the delay is something you factor in on account of the necessary requirement of efficiency. But your pink bottles, they activate instantly. When you need to get that slowdown in the interim, Your pink bottle does the job like that. You don't have to think ahead of time. You don't have to plot about structure tiles or palettes going forward with that delay into account. You throw your pink, it applies. And not only does it have that greater slowdown, which means they cover less distance, but it forces survivors that would otherwise be able to take fast vaults into having to take medium vaults. Medium vaults are very, very good when you force a survivor into it. I know this poor vernacular. When a survivor, I think it extends the time window that they have to actually the animation by more than half a second. It's a very significant period of time. And it is going to be the absolute difference in enabling you getting plenty of hits. Whether it is chasing a survivor that's running straight, which is really the biggest point. You're going to come across a lot of scenarios where you're going to be just holding W, following a survivor. They've got a window right in front of them. And if you don't have a ping for that window, there are going to be a pretty good amount of situations you will not get a hit in. Because the fast vault is so fast, you're not going to have time to connect the lunge. The fast vault is like a hop. Medium vaults is like a climb. I mean, hop versus climb. You're going to have a lot more time in a nutshell. And so that is where getting that forced medium vault is so valuable. Now that we've kind of looked at one with the initiator and one with the executioner, I think we are about ready to actually start looking at some examples here. And what we're going to do with these examples is first with each example, I'm going to play the video out as it is. I'm going to let the examples go through, just raw. And then afterward, we're going to rewind each example and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you my summary. I'm going to be talking about what I had in mind at the time, things to look out for, different possible explanations or alternatives, things that ultimately just revolve around the scope of that particular tile. And this is really where the whole preparation part comes into. A lot of these things I'm going to be talking about, maybe not necessarily everything, but a very good portion of everything I'm going to be getting into is something I was thinking about in that moment. Okay? And this is where practice comes in. You have to practice to get that understanding of the preparation. There comes a point with your yellow bottles where the delay really doesn't even bother you. It doesn't really bother me anymore because I factored that delay into my course of action. Now, anyways, let's get started. This first example right here is going to be a little bit self-explanatory on its own. I very loosely kind of explain my course of action. So everything you kind of hear me talking about in this beginning is literally the steps of a course of action, and I'll rebuff it, of course, when we finish. But anyways, let's get started here.
That's fine. This one works too. Set up from this angle, come this way, come out. Ooh, she's actually smart. I actually was a little bit behind, but that's fine. This one's also good. One of the reasons we specifically came from that angle is because the only other way she could go is to go into this classroom, which also works for us too. Go around like this, come walk inside, pretend the pallet kick. We forgot to swap bottles because I'm bad at the game. It still works out. Throw a yellow this way. She can't make it in time because we specifically calculated it that way. All she's got is this shit right here, and unless she's got Dead Hard, she somehow goes down. And that's the wrap.
Alright, so that's our first example right here. So everything you really heard me talking about there, we go this way, drop the bottle, walk in. All of that is the steps of a course of action. These are essentially, it's like a dance routine, almost in a way. That's the specific clip. I think I called it dance commentary because we're kind of like, we do this and then you do this, cross your foot over here. That's kind of what a course of action really is. So let's start playing it again, and I'm going to pause it a bit briefly in between.
That's fine. This one works too. Set up from
Okay, so first thing we do is we throw the yellow on the far left side of it and we start walking away. This does two things. It puts pressure on her to where she can't come around this right side. Do you see how we have this opening outside the front of the doorway? We have it from the right. By walking more to the right here, she can't be looking to take this side of the loop. Further, it kind of encourages her to go toward the left in the opposite, right? It encourages her to go to the left because that's also where we threw our yellow bottle. And on the left side of that as well is another classroom. She's kind of got this situation because of this of where she can't go out the front. All she can take is the left to another classroom, but that's where we threw our yellow. the yellow's not going to be active for a couple seconds. Does she know the timer on how long the yellow is going to become active? And if I'm throwing the yellow, why would I throw the yellow for her to get it? You know, it's pretty likely maybe that I may be going for the yellow. So in this moment, all of these things that I'm talking about right now is in a span of 2.5 seconds, about 2 seconds or something like that. This Hattie needs to figure out what the fuck that I'm doing. Does she take that yellow and go for the other room? Because remember, you make a mistake in a situation like this, in that period, I'm going to hit you. That's a health state. Every mistake essentially is a health state. So survivors are thinking on their feet here. Does she go to the left? Does she camp go to the right, or does she camp the pallet? Kind of stay more in the center where it's more safe. Well, that center that we just talked about, that I just mentioned, that's the tile that we have sliced. She can't go to the left because she risks getting hit. We're specifically sitting on the right, which means that she can't risk getting hit. She has to kind of stay in the center. That's where we've got her sliced in the tile. So let's kind of move forward for another couple steps. Okay, now we know we faked the pallet kick. Part of why I like to fake the pallet kick is because survivors have that refuge at the center of the pallet. When you fake kicking the pallet, you put a survivor in an indecisive position of they need to leave that tile. They need to leave that tile right now. I'm making them, in that moment, consider needing to leave that tile, needing to pick a direction. And then before I have time for them to facilitate following through on that, I break away from faking the pallet kick and I start rotating. I now remove any decision of where they go left or right, because remember, they're sitting at the center, and I force them. Do they vault the pallet through the center, or do they go around the back? Now that's the question, right? Now what do you do? Because I'm right here on that other side. You try to go around the right, I've got my yellow. You risk me catching you because if you go around the right, you're in a hallway. You've got nothing. You know, you've got no other obstacles. Once you leave this room, you're in hallways, you know? And as I'm rotating from this left side like this, as we're rotating from the left, she now can't go into the classroom because we've shifted our slicing of the tile. Where the tile really kind of had us initially at the center, and she didn't know she could go left or right. She wanted to stay at the center. Now she has to either go through the center or she has to go around the back. She can't take the classroom. So let's move forward. Now, as we see, we're forcing her. The plan here is we want to rotate from the right. Her choices here are if she goes from the hallways or if she goes through the courtyard. She's slowed down by her pinks. We've got her yellows. We're going to hit her, okay? So now she can either continue going straight, running the loop a bit more, risk getting hit, or vaulting the pallet, right? So we keep rotating. And here we go. Now, this is where I made a bit of a miscalculation, to be quite honest. And I actually could have played it better and still hit her here anyways. The only reason I didn't really do this, I was really, really anxious. I was really on the move. I didn't exactly consider rotating backward. What we could have done when I threw that pink and I rotated, let me real quick step back a couple seconds. It's about like right over here. Now, when I throw this pink here, I could have rotated like this, right? I could have doubled back. It's not about right here, about a few seconds earlier, I could have doubled back. And I could have hit her by forcing her to run through the pink again, because I would have reset my yellow. Remember, my yellow's about right here. If I would have doubled back, there's a very damn good chance, because of the way the structure right here is curved, that I would have hit her before she made it to the pallet from the inside. The only reason I didn't really want to do this is because not only was it still a bit riskier and I didn't have any bottles, but let's say I came up short, okay? This is a big deal. Let's say I came up short. Do you see how there's a little pocket right here? Regardless whether I hit her or I don't, she's going outside. She's going to take this pallet vault because she's healthy, and she's either going to run hold W straight through that courtyard, other side of the fucking map, or she's going left or right. So this is a situation of where I'm damned whether I hit her or I don't. And let's consider that I don't hit her, okay? If I don't hit this Hattie, she's going to be healthy going into the preceding chase. I'm going to be in a position where I either have to walk around this pallet or I have to break it. And I don't really want to break this pallet either. This is a very vulnerable pallet if you play it right. And I don't like breaking pallets when they're vulnerable, since it really forces a lot of survivors into making very poor decisions. especially when you take into how survivors can lose distance vaulting a pallet instead of holding W. But I digress, okay? So let's go back to moving forward a bit. So the reason why we break away and we do not commit is because we realized how much distance there was between us. We knew that if we committed going to the left, she was going to vault in. And what was that going to mean? We were going to be in the exact same situation as was in the beginning, except we've lost about maybe 10 to 12, 15 seconds or so, because she's going to be on the exact opposite side of the pallet. We're going to be on the exact opposite side. We're not going to have any bottles. We're going to have to reload. We have no health state confirmation. So that is why we did it. Instead, we opted for something different. Instead, what we opted for is we decided to come around the right like this, okay? Alright, now notice how when we come around to the right, we don't catch her to the pallet, but that's fine. I don't even attempt to make like I'm going to get close enough to swing, because we just know it's not happening. But we don't have any bottles, gang, okay? We don't have any bottles. Well, we lost our last two because we didn't have a chance really to reload from the prior chases that we had. So instead what we do here is once we get here, excuse me, hiccups, gang. Excuse me. Anyways, once we get her over or in between that pallet at the center of the tile, we start shifting to the left. By putting ourselves at that left of the H tile, remember it's kind of like a little bit of an H shape here with these, they're kind of shaped like beds. What we're doing is she can't take the doorway on the left side to get out of this classroom, and it's going to be really, really rough for her to consider taking the right doorway, the door we just came in through, because taking that doorway puts her at that exact same tile where she almost got hit. And with us having more bottles and playing with better momentum, there's a good chance that we hit her. You know, if she's also playing, let's just also assume she's playing with a little bit of intuition. If she notices that I didn't kick that pallet and that I'm trying to hit her around that pallet and I come short the first time, and we go back to that pallet again and I don't kick it, or, you know, let's not even assume that she, if we do that, let's assume that she's thinking if we do. She probably doesn't want that situation to happen to begin with. She doesn't want to take that doorway, if anything, because she knows that there's at least a potential for danger there. Well, as it stands right now, she doesn't have much of a choice on where she goes in this moment, because we're sitting at the wedge. We have this tile slice too. She's got walls behind her. She can't just run away from the other side. She has to take one of these two doorways. And as far as we stand right here, we have her sliced to where she can't. So this is why we reload right here, okay? Notice how we're reloading. She's not going anywhere, and she tries. Look at those scratch marks. Do y'all see those scratch marks back there? She tried. She wanted to take that avenue. See that right there? She really wanted to take this avenue to get out, but she knew that if she overcommitted, that she had a good chance of getting hit. Now, what she didn't know, I'm almost certain of this, by the way, too, or maybe she did. The way that she went the other way after we hit her, as you'll see, makes me think she didn't know this pallet ride's right here, because she would have been really, really safe regardless of if we hit her if she went to this pallet. This is the staircase pallet that you will typically see next to one of the sides that blocks the whole hallway where you have to kick it to go up the stairs. This is that pallet right there. But she was trying to get out this classroom, y'all, and she couldn't really do that. We had her really, really trapped in. And this meant that we could get a free reload. This is why you don't also want to reload as well when you're following a survivor in a W chase, because when you're following a W chase and you have to reload, you lose a lot of distance. We're not losing any distance here. She is behind a pallet tile. She cannot go anywhere. She's got walls to her back. And again, y'all, my nose is just driving me crazy.
Which also works for us too. Go around like this.
Alright, about the spin, by the way, if you are curious about that shit, the idea behind the spin is that it's a discombobulation technique. Obviously, we don't really need to spin. You know what I mean? Spinning doesn't technically accomplish anything. It doesn't create any distance for us. It's not necessary because we're throwing a bottle in a different direction. We are quite literally spinning to throw her off. We're not stopping our movement. Do you notice how... Let me go back about a few seconds here. Do you notice how as we're doing this, let's...
That angle is because the only other way she could go is to go into this classroom, which also works for us too. Go around like this, come walk.
Yeah, so we don't just stop moving. We spin, walk forward, walk backward, throw. The idea there is that we're doing a bunch of different things that ultimately does not compromise our setup, and if anything, enables it to be stronger because it makes it hard for her to really guess what we're doing. We're taking a lot of proactive movements. This is also called having high momentum, by the way. You don't really want to be stagnant. You don't want to be stationary because it allows a survivor to recoup from the pressure that you place on them through your movement as well as your bottle placements, and allows them to kind of recenter and refocus and think of a style of counterplay. So what we do here as part of it here is we walk in, we want to fake the pallet kick, right?
Walk inside, pretend the pallet kick.
We specifically fake that pallet kick is because when we faked that pallet kick after we started rotating this way, we knew it was going to push her in the opposite direction. She's going to want to get out of that corner, y'all. She is going to want to get out of that corner, and she's going to want to consider going toward that doorway. She wants to get out of this classroom, right? So what do we do after we fake throwing down that pallet? Well, our yellow bottle's now ready. Remember that yellow bottle we threw and we did our little dance move? Let's go back a couple seconds just to re-show that.
Which also works for us too. Go around like this, come walk inside, pretend the pallet.
That's all the time it takes. You see the time we did? We did our spin, threw the bottle, walked in, faked the pallet, threw the pink. It doesn't take a lot of time when you really get into the flow of things. Also, look at that crow, y'all. To see how, to pick up your yellow bottle to see how quickly it truly activates. Now, the mistake that we did make following up here, by the way, is this was meant to be a pink. Okay, I actually did make a really big mistake here, both kind of in the bottle placement, but also when I threw my pink, it was a yellow, which meant that she didn't get slowed down. This would have been good because if this was a pink, assuming it was a pink, this would have been good because she would have been slowed down if she left the hallway, and she would have been slowed before she made it to the pallet. But thankfully, we would have still, from the looks of it, been able to hit her with just our yellow bottle alone, just due to the speed difference. But the idea was, we wanted to force her to walk into a pink that would have enabled us to hit her whether she left the classroom or if she committed back toward the pallet. We put her in a catch-22 position that she's not able to really anticipate because of the fast string of actions we did together. And one more real quick replay of those going into that, just so you can see how quickly it happens.
The only other way she could go is to go into this classroom, which also works for us too. Go around like this, come walk inside, pretend the pallet kick. We forgot to swap bottles because I'm bad at the game.
So as you can see, as we are coming around, she starts to pull back. Do you notice how she pulled back from the doorway? She thought that shit was a pink. I thought it was a pink. You know, she in that moment has to figure out what the hell she's gonna do. And she, in that moment, was so panicked that she was trying to dodge a fucking yellow bottle. You know? All of this is happening so quickly. And we didn't need a pink, thankfully, to get the hit. But all of that happened so fast, that the execution of things like spinning in a circle, faking a pallet kick, throwing down the yellow before you walk to the left, after walking to the left, walking into the center, walking into the pallet, fake the kick, pull back, throwing the pink, all of that are steps to your course of action. Now let's play it out from here. We get the hit, right? We get the hit. What does she do next? Notice how she does not want to mess with this tile. She has enough time if she wanted to. She could have went left right around the structure. She could have gone back into the tile. She could have put me in a position where I had to play around it. But why didn't she do that? Why didn't she do that? Because she now has two examples in a single chase of where I'm not kicking the pallets that she throws down. She sees that pallet as after I just hit her at the other pallet, and she knows that she is likely going to get hit if she stays there. So instead, she goes into the hallways.
It still works out. Throw a yellow this way.
This yellow bottle right here, we know that as we threw it when we did, that there is enough distance between when it's inactive and when it's active that we're going to be get it right as it's coming active, but that if she wants to even have a chance at making it to that window, that it is going to be inactive during the whole time that she's within the cloud. she is not going to be able to pick up that yellow speed boost without losing so much distance that it is completely irrelevant and results in her getting hit anyways. It's essentially a bottle that's for me and not for her. She gets absolutely no value even if she wanted to. There is no counterplay that would result in her not getting hit and benefiting from the speed. So let's fast forward again.
She can't make it in time because we specifically calculated it that way. All she's got is this shit right here, and unless she's got Dead Hard, she somehow goes down. And that's the right.
Alright, now we did kind of miss our pink there when we were getting our pink, but I thought it would be necessary. It seems we didn't need the pink there either. That is just the pure dominance of the yellows. But as you can really see, we were able to get that yellow and catch her without her getting the yellow. If she got that yellow, we would not have caught her, by the way. The way the fact that we were hitting her just as she fast faulted over, that is what the difference is having the speed and not having it is for her. We threw it in a way to where it wasn't possible for both of us to get it. We were going to get it, she wasn't. And that's that example. Let's move forward to our next example, though. Alright, in this example, we've just hooked a survivor. We see another survivor right here. This is good. We get a free M1 without using any bottles. And we're using a 4-bottle build as well, by the way. Getting a hit in without using any bottles is amazing. This, if you can have that happen, you're typically in a very damn good spot for the rest of that chase. There's a very damn good chance that even if you make a mistake in chase, that you can improvise and follow up on that mistake and still get that down without having to reload, even with a 4-bottle build. But that's only assuming if you have 4 bottles, obviously, to begin with, and you get that injury without using any bottles. This Claude basically gave it to us kind of because she was out in the open, and maybe she realized that, but essentially, that's what happened. So what happens next? Alright, so notice how she runs by this pallet. She could have thrown this pallet down, but if she threw down this pallet, she would have lost a lot of forward distance, because it's going to mean that she has to stop in place, throw down the pallet, keep going forward. Further, this tree stump right here, we could just go right around, right? So the only real value in throwing down this pallet for her is going to be if she's going to try to loop it. But perhaps she knows. Now, I can't remember from this specific game, but, I mean, you guys know, we typically show through our gameplay, we don't kick pallets. So if she tries to throw down this pallet and tries to loop it, and with the knowledge especially that we're going around pallets anyways, the idea of throwing down this pallet, try to loop, means she probably gets hit, and she can't just throw down the pallet, hold W, because she's probably going to get hit, she's going to lose distance, so what does she do, right? She runs without throwing down the pallet. Nothing wrong with that, but let's see what happens next.
Yeah, we'll do this.
Alright, now see, do y'all see when we threw this yellow? Do y'all see how early we threw this yellow? This yellow has multiple benefits for us, because we're throwing it at a pallet tile. Y'all are going to see the pallet in just a sec. This is also, by the way, one of the reasons I like to run Zancian Tactics, is because Zancian Tactics makes this shit a lot easier. If you're able to remember things like this, like these pallet spawns, without seeing the R's consistently over the course of the game, you know, I mean, it's not really going to do anything different for you here. I mean, this is an example of me knowing ahead of time that this pallet is right here. We know this is a pallet loop. We know how it is shaped. But there are obviously going to be so many dynamic differences. That's why I run it. But I digress. Back to this example. We throw our yellow because not only do we know that it's a pallet loop, but we are also taking into account the possibility that she is going to be running to that main building. So in the event that she does not stay at this pallet loop, we're going to be able to, by the time that this cloud activates, take that yellow, and we can either follow her up the staircase to the main structure, or we can go under if she decides to go under. But let's say she doesn't decide to commit to main building. Let's assume that she wants to run the tile. We have now thrown this yellow bottle so early that not only is it going to be, of course, active when we go through, but before she even has a time to process what it is that we're doing, we're going to have our double bottle combo already set up. And in fact, pay attention to this. Let's go ahead and see. In fact, I forgot I'm supposed to let it play out normally before I go into it. We'll do that for the next one. But let's for this one. We are going to go ahead and do the rest of this with the breakdown. But yeah, so we walk into the yellow. Look at this. She throws down the pallet. Okay, she throws down the pallet. She cannot move during this time. She is stuck in place. Okay. And while she's stuck in place, throwing down this pallet, I'm walking backwards. I'm walking backwards, my pink bottle's in hand. I'm throwing it. Let's look where I throw it. Alright, so I get the hit. I'm going to rewind it again too so y'all can really see. And since I didn't let it play on its own before talking into it, I'm going to just reverse the order, I guess, of that. You guys can see this example on its own last afterwards. But let's see here. Let me scroll back a bit. So yes, I want to real quick because I don't think I fully clarified. So we threw down this yellow. She throws it down. We do this. That is because we knew that as we loop around here, with her being stuck in place, we played around her pre-dropping that pallet. This didn't catch us off guard, okay? We knew that there's a very good chance if she doesn't run to main building and she stays at this pallet, she's going to pre-drop it. She's not going to wait for us to walk into it. She wants to use the safety of the pallet to hopefully protect her because she thinks we're going to have to kick it. This one at least, because of the angle that we're at. You know what I mean? But let's see. So we come in. Right as we do that, we throw. And as you see, we're hitting her right as she slides over. Now, what if we were a bit more timid? If we were a bit more timid, then we probably would have had a rough time getting that hit. Because she would have been able to throw down that pallet. She would have been able to take a breath or two, relax, think a bit. Kind of consider what angles we're taking. Our yellow bottle would not have been thrown down early, which means she's going to see us now throw the yellow and start making moves around it. It's not a manner of her running away from me because I just hit her, or seeing a pallet tile, but before she's even making it to the pallet, she sees the bottle already down, and I mean, I'm just walking into her. She thinks I gotta drop this pallet to protect her. Pink's set up on now on the left. As she does that, she has no real choice in that manner, right? Because what if she 50-50? Let's go back a few seconds too. Do you think she could have 50-50 this gang?
Yeah, go for the pallet.
Alright. The pink like this. Now let's assume she stood right here, okay? Let's assume she sees me throw this pink. And she knows on her own that she's not going to be able to make it if she curves around like she did. Okay? And let's assume she stood right there. Look at how short this is. Okay? I very well could mind game this. Especially with extra duration add-ons, I probably wouldn't even need another yellow for this. If I know that she's going to be right here, I could make it seem like I'm going to come around here. And then as she vaults, with the increased haste and the extra lunge duration, I hit her as she's going over the pallet. And even in the event that maybe there's just a little bit too much distance, right? You'll kind of see this. Like maybe from this side, I can't do it, you know, because of this little boat. I can, with my speed, give her the impression that I am coming back around to do it from that side while she's still recovering from that vault. And then as she vaults over again here, do you see how open it is from this side? I would hit her on this side, okay? So this is very, very vulnerable to 50-50s. And even if she played it kind of smart enough to where she kind of caught me ahead of time for this yellow bottle before it expired, we have enough bottles to where I could set up a yellow on that side right over here. I could set up a yellow right here by these crates. And then I could walk from this side, throw a pink on the other, and then just come from the opposite, and we do it that way. But anyways, before we move on to the next example, I want this example here because I didn't do this earlier. I'm going to let this play out on its own without any pausing so you guys can just kind of see how everything really works, naturally.
Yeah, more Stabiffle stacks. Why the fuck not? Yeah, we'll do this. Hell yeah, go for the pallet.
There we go. Alright, I'm going to let this play out on its own, and then we're going to talk about it.
Hopefully I'm not too loud. I can only do so much.
Alrighty. Really, really good. Now let's rewind it a bit. Where are we? We start about right here. Okay. Oop. Alright. Ooh, okay. So where we are right now, we've got a small hedge and we've got a pallet. depending on how the survivor plays this, you can actually eat the pallet stun here. This is a very, very dangerous place to eat a pallet stun. Very, very dangerous. So one of the things that I really try to do here is I try to play around the idea that I'm going to eat a pallet stun and I'm still going to get the hit in. Okay? That is really what we're playing around here. So watch. We throw down this yellow. This is a very interesting yellow, you're probably thinking, because look, we're both right on top of it, right? It's at the small hedge, right on top of the pallet. We know that she's going to be circling around this hedge in order to go back to that pallet, which means that she's likely going to be going into that yellow. So it's very interesting to consider because of that, right? So let's move forward a bit. So we get this hit, okay? We get the hit, and she's going straight back into this hedge. She's going right into this pallet. She's going right into my yellow, okay? There are a couple things to take into account here. She throws down the pallet, okay? Now, throwing down the pallet means she's going to get this speed boost. She's going to get that 10%. But what she's also going to lose is she's going to lose that speed boost from after we hit her. The speed boost that you gain when you take an injury is a lot greater than that speed boost you're getting from that yellow. So us throwing down that yellow, as we did, and her eating the hit, and then choosing to throw down that pallet, means that she is forfeiting that speed boost for a much weaker speed boost. But further, what happens for us, right? Look at this, look at this. She's about right here. We didn't eat a pallet stun, in fact. I was banking on us eating a pallet stun and recovering from our hit animation slightly faster. That was initially what the plan was. But we didn't even eat the pallet stun. And she starts kind of running from this direction. We're sped up by our yellow, and yeah, maybe she is too, but she's not creating nearly as much distance as she would have created if she had the speed boost, because the speed boost from getting injured is not only greater, but she wouldn't have had to stop to drop the pallet. Dropping the pallet means you are not moving. You're moving at 0.0 meters per second. So for that whole time that she threw down that pallet, 0.0 meters per second while she has the speed boost, that's terrible, you know? So here we are. We're approaching now from the right. And we throw this pink as we do. See this pink? This pink is because we're expecting her to not want to go this way. We're expecting her to not want to go this way because this is kind of the corner of the map. This is very vulnerable to tile slicing. Very, very vulnerable. And you're going to kind of see this again here. And we're kind of playing around her, wanting to take a less vulnerable position by rotating more around the right here, okay? So let's start fast forwarding a bit. We were expecting her to want to go to this jungle gym. Okay, and we were more forcing her to go to this jungle gym as opposed to going to main building. We wanted to get that pink at least, so she kind of had some choices to make, but those choices did not entail her making it to the main building. Okay, so instead we get the pink down here, and she opts, instead of taking the jungle gyms, she opts in order to go for the structure. We throw our yellow. Now we're throwing this yellow where we are early because we do not expect her to want to loop. We expect her to be a little panicked. And this is also, of course, something you may need to take into account with other survivors and how they play. Some may play this a little bit differently. You may get a survivor that runs around it. They're more confident, and they may try to go for that yellow. So you need to play around it into account and then place your pinks properly. But we didn't really do that here because it was something we just didn't really read from this mag. But let's see. Excuse me. We come in and we throw this pink. And, you know, this is course of action, you know, just in a nutshell, okay? We're already planning ahead. We're planning and setting up our course of action. We start up. Yellow bottle. Walk in. Turn, throw pink. This is all planned. This is all planned. This pallet needs to get dropped for us. As long as this pallet is not dropped, then things become a little bit dangerous for us because we can eat that pallet stun. We have to respect the area of possession. Pallet possession is a very damn big deal because survivors can create a lot of distance off of this. If she stuns us from this side, she goes back to the other side of the map, and because of the shapes of that rock, especially it being so thick on that left side, it's going to take a good bit of time for us to do that. It's going to likely be a net positive for her when it comes to running away. We'll be able to close a little bit more distance because we did place our yellow bottle there, but ultimately it's not good. We do not want to eat this pallet stun. We want this pallet to get dropped, pre-dropped especially. So what do? We throw down our yellow, we start walking into it. We pull out right as we walk in. She thinks that we're committing, but we're not. And what does she do? She drops that pallet. And right as she's dropping that pallet, do you already see what's going on right here? My pink bottle's already in motion. I'm not waiting. I expected her to do that when she did, and I'm already into action because this is ahead of time calculation. Course of action in a nutshell, step-by-step process. We throw our pink bottle, and we're already moving. Do you notice this? Yellow bottle's now active. Remember, we threw that yellow bottle before we walked into that pallet, okay? We come in just like this. Yellow bottle. Walk in, throw the pink. Course of action, okay? We follow her around. That pink means she is not able to make it to that pallet. Do you see why she pulls out? She pulls out because she knows she's not going to make it to the pallet. Next example. And also, you know, pay attention to these walls, right? This is really why we wanted to get her either at this jungle gym or get her right here. Alright, this is a really, really good example. This is probably one of my favorite chases that I've actually ever done. With how fluid it was, how quick it was. This chase is, y'all, 2 health states in 23 seconds. So really, really put a lot of attention on this. This table right here is normally one a lot of people consider to be extremely safe for survivors. But this table is very mind gameable. This table is very unsafe if you play it right. And you're going to see a specific analysis of this chase under the Gideon section of the guide. If you go down to that, you'll be able to see a step-by-step breakdown with a chase blueprint analysis, textually and everything. But we're going to be looking at it here as well in this video because I think it really does showcase the course of action, facilitating one and placing your bottles properly, acting on the move with momentum, and using the bottles and the way you really should be using them for. Right tools for the right job, right? So let's get into it. We're going to let this play on its own by itself, and then we're going to break it down. Give me just a sec. All right. Not gonna lie, y'all did kind of zone out there. It's a good thing we did let y'all play through that again. I was thinking about some stuff with this video here, but let's see. So as y'all can see from when we played it out, it was a very, very quick process. There was not really any moment as we were chasing this Bill where we really gave him any time to breathe. We were setting up and playing around it. So let's go back to the beginning here, okay? Let's go back a bit. And we're going to do step by step. So first things first, we're reloading, okay? We didn't have any bottles here. We needed more bottles to make our play. So we're specifically shifting left and right. We're doing this because we want to make it a little bit difficult for him to figure out if he should leave the tile or if he should stay. Because if we're a little bit ready mentally and we're angled to get that hit if he vaults out into the tile, that's a health state, right? That means that he's thrown down this pallet for nothing. This pallet hasn't protected him. He is just throwing away any value he may have potentially gained and getting to get hit anyways, right? And he's now going to have to go to another tile. That is very likely a reason as to why he wouldn't want to vault this pallet. And we want to really keep him thinking that. We do not want him to leave. So that is kind of why we move left and right like this. And once we have our bottles there, first thing we do, we throw our yellow. Look at where we throw it, okay? Oh, shit. Back up a little bit. First things first, before we throw the yellow, we walk into the right. Walking into the right like that, we're slicing him further in. Because do y'all notice the way that this is shaped? This is a tile slicing, an example of tile slicing. He is stuck within this tile. We've got him sliced like a box within these tables, okay? Within these tables and the two walls behind him. So we walk into the right, keep pushing him further into that box, and then we throw a yellow to our left. Now where do we throw this yellow? Do you see that yellow right there? Do y'all see kind of where it's angled? Do you see where Bill is? Bill's kind of thinking to himself, I'm a little bit away from this yellow. The clown is, I should say. The clown is a little bit away from this yellow. And it's inactive, so it's not like that necessarily matters. But where am I right now? I'm all the way over here. he's going to want to be creating distance from me. He has the safety of this pallet loop, but he doesn't want me to close distance because it means I'm going to hit. So what does he start doing, right? He starts rotating toward the yellow as we start running around the right. And what do? What I do here is I walk in like I'm going to fake the pallet kick. I want to make him think that I'm going to kick this pallet, because if I do that, it's going to make him definitely think I'm going to start going now around that table. Not only am I further away from that bottle and the opposite side of that long table with that yellow, but I'm giving him this impression that I'm going to commit more time than I actually am to kicking this pallet and then forcing the chase to go somewhere else. But that's not what I'm doing at all. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm throwing a pink bottle after I pretend to kick the pallet. So now what does Bill realize? Bill realizes that I'm not kicking the pallet, that I'm not committing from this right side. I'm committing from the left. Okay? And look at this. Yellow bottle's now active. It wasn't active before. It wouldn't have been active as he would have came in, or at least if it did, we still would have hit him. And he probably realizes that. As we started to rotate back, and he knows that yellow's getting ready to get active, he probably realized that we would have hit him there. Okay? So look where he is right now. Look where we are right now. Look where our pink bottle is, right on this other side. The idea behind this pink was that we're keeping him sliced even further in within this tile. We want him to think that he has to stay within these two tables. He can't go around the back, because if he goes around the back, we have our yellow for speed, and he's going to be slowed down by the pink. So he's not going to make it back to the pallet. But what happens? What happens here, gang? Let's find out. Okay. What we did, we gave him the impression that we were going to commit from inside the table and we were going to hit him. And similarly, like with the previous first example, this would not have been very good. If we would have hit him coming in from the inside, we would have gotten a health state, but he would have still vaulted that pallet right there, this pallet right here, and he would have gone out of this tile. He would have just held W, and we would have had to either kick this pallet, which means the vulnerability of this loop will be gone, or we would have had to walk around, which would have taken some time, okay? So not exactly a very good outcome, right? We wouldn't exactly want that to happen. So we pretend like we're coming in, and we move fast, gang. We do not move slow. If you've ever gone against a yellow bottle clown, it's actually pretty intimidating from the survivor POV how fast it both looks and actually is. So he doesn't have a whole lot of time to process. Let's really we're gonna play this on its own. Look how quickly we go through this yellow and how soon Bill starts committing to get to this pallet and how soon we hit him, okay? You can only really turn and look so many ways so quickly while committing to running in a certain direction, vaulting the pallet. You can only really do so much of that at once, and it can be kind of difficult when we're talking in a 2-second time frame, okay? So here we go. Literally by the time, y'all, there's a recovery animation in between vaulting the pallet. By the time that he has slid over that pallet, he's looking at us and he sees that we're coming around the other side, and he's wanting to get back over. This wasn't a delayed reaction on his part. This was what you could call recovery frames. He was still stuck in a animation. He had to immediately turn back around, and we were able to hit him before he slid back over the pallet because of that. Now, what happens here, okay? Because we hit him as he was going back over the pallet in the other direction, we were able to hit him as he slid outward, and to avoid the hit, he wanted to go back inward. Well, it's a reverse of the situation that we were talking about that was a problem. Because now, instead of him being able to leave the room, he's stuck inside. He can't leave. He has to run it back. You know? So how does that happen, okay? How do we play around this? Well, first things first, we have 4 bottles. I know this overlay is kind of blocking it. We have 4 bottles right here, okay? And that means we don't have to reload. So without even slowing down our momentum, do you see how we still have how much seconds of haste that we have here? We're still under the effects of haste, okay? We're still under the effects of our haste. And we're going in chase. And where is Bill right now? Bill's right here, okay? By the time we start running back from this side, you're probably wondering, why doesn't Bill abandon the tile? By the time we start running back, Bill's only about right here. Bill's only about right here. And that means that with our yellow bottle activating, not even, because our yellow bottle wasn't activated as we cross through here. With the remaining seconds that we have from our add-on, the Garage Makeup Kit, we are going to be able to lunge and hit him before he makes it to a new tile because of the extra duration. So we throw down our yellow, right? We throw down our yellow. We circle a bit to the left. We then start to come to the right because we see him coming from the right. And Bill notices. Bill knows, because of how fast that we're moving, that he's not going to be able to leave this tile. So he starts running back. And what do we do here, gang? We throw another pink. This one a bit better than the first time. And what we're doing here is we're locking down the outside. If he wants to run the back, he's not going to make it to that pallet when he comes around the back because we have our yellow with extra 2 seconds especially, and we have this pink. So what does he do here? What does he notice? He notices that, and he commits. He thinks he wants to take the momentum he has from running in that straight direction. He's probably banking on us going the other way as well. He knows that he can't go the left side because of the pink, so he goes to the pallet. But look at this, gang. With our yellow speed, we hit him on the inside now as he's crossing the pallet. And because he's already injured, we get the down. There isn't a negative aspect to how we approached it this time around because it's not like we injured him and he abandoned the pallet. We hit him, he goes down, that's a hook. Next example. Okay. This is a really, really good one. I really, really like this one. Let's play. Let it play out normally. Because this is a very, very example of very back-to-back, very basic. No, it's not fancy, but it's very, very good. 2 good examples of just double bottle combo setups you'll see next to each other. Let's get into it.
She has one right here, keep that in mind. There we go.
Alrighty, gang. So here we go. What we've got here, we are approaching a survivor. Let me back this up a bit. We're going to go right back to the beginning of this example here. Oh my gosh, y'all, hold on. Oh no! All right. That was a little bit awkward. Sorry about that, gang. All right. Let's see. I thought I was about to vape again. Anyways, we are approaching. There are 2 different tiles here. Okay, or excuse me, 2 different loops. Although technically, yeah, these are 2 different tiles. This is a tile right here. If you're curious, right, this little structure with this pallet and everything right back here. This is a tile, and there's a tile to our left with this other pallet loop. We're approaching a survivor that we know is in the process of finishing up a generator, and we were trying to see if we could interrupt them, but we knew it was very unlikely, and so we were kind of getting ready. So as we come up on here, and we see that this generator pops, the first thing we do is we throw a pink to the right, and then we approach from the left. The reason why you pink to the right, approach from the left, is because there's really no reason why run through a pink. There's genuinely very little reason to do that. Survivors want to avoid the pinks. So all you're really doing is, you're not really doing, you're doing them favors. You're not doing anything for you. You throw a pink to the right, approach from the left. You either hit them if they run to the left, or you force them to go right through the pink, and then you hit them anyways, which is what would have happened here, right? So she doesn't go to the right. She decides to keep holding to the left. There's not enough time. There's too much distance between us for me to hit her before she makes it to the pallet. So what do we do instead? We throw a yellow right here. It's still inactive, okay? This whole time it's inactive. And we walk into the pallet. We want to make her think that we're about to get ready to hit her right here. This is the area of possession, gang, okay? Where we both are right now, this is within the area of possession. This leaves me very vulnerable. This makes her, if she plays it right, she is safe. Because if we eat this pallet stun, gang, she can go straight into main building. She can either likely go straight into main building, she can go to this right here, maybe go to some of these structures to this right, but ultimately we have to recover from this. And we can pick up our yellow to capitalize off of it anyways. You know, if we were to eat this stun, and she were to kind of go somewhere like this, we could pick up this yellow and go that way, but it's also possible too. It's also possible that, that it's only really neutral. There's no extra distance closed from this yellow because you look at how close it is right here. She possibly, after dropping it, this would become active. She would pick it up and then she would get the distance too. Okay. So instead what we do is we respect the area of possession. We respect it. We make her think, though, that we don't respect it after we've already set up our yellow while it's still inactive. We walk into it, we pull out, we throw a pink. Look at this, okay? Right as we pull out and throw the pink, she drops it. She's going to be stuck in this animation, okay? She's not going to be able to do anything the whole time that she's doing this. And the whole time, she's only barely have enough time. She could have started the vault animation by now, but, I mean, she literally just did, I guess, a fraction of a second later, but we still hit her. We hit her as she's sliding, okay? Now look at this pink, okay? Do you see this pink right here, right as we hit her? We threw that pink the way we did because we knew that we were going to be able to hit her while she was still stuck in the animation. Which means that if we're doing that and she's panicking and she vaults here, where can she go? She's got a wall behind her, right? She can't just hold W that way. She can't go to the left, because what happens if she holds left, gang? You want me to tell you? She's going to run into that pink. She's not going to be able to make it to any adjacent tile, because I'm going to have not just my current yellow, but I can curve around from the left as well. I'm going to refresh that speed boost. I'm going to recover from my weapon swing animation. I'm going to pick up my yellow cloud while it's still active. She's going to run through her pink, and I'm going to hit her before she either makes it to a tile to that side all the way over here, all the way far side of the other corner, or if she wants to run this loop, right, run in a circle, I'm going to hit her before she makes it back to this pallet. So what happens? We hit her. She goes to the right. And I think she picks up the speed buff, by the way. Sometimes the clouds can be really thick. It's one of the reasons I'm also not an advocate for the add-on that increases his yellow bottle size. You don't really want to make it bigger, in my opinion. I think you really only create situations like this that can happen. But yeah, I think she gets the yellow speed buff, but look where we have to force her to run. Do you see this pink buff here too? Do you see this? Not only do we have that pink buff from over there, but this pink buff is still kind of active, which makes her think that she doesn't want to go here either. She doesn't want to go to the left. She doesn't want to commit too far to this corner to the right, so she has to go kind of further in, which also puts her closer to us. And what does she have? What does she have that's right here? She has this pallet loop. This is the only pallet loop, though, that she has, right? This is the only real resource. And we know this. We remark on it, and what do we do first thing before we even get to that pallet? We throw a yellow on this side. This yellow bottle's cooking, and what do we do while the yellow bottle's cooking? Same thing. Respect the area of possession. Show your face, respect the area of possession, and you want to force them to pre-drop that pallet, or at least encourage them to. You technically can't force them, but you really want to encourage them and make it seem like it's the smart play for them, even though it's a stupid play, right? I mean, there's only really so much you can do against Clown, but I digress. We throw the pink as we know that she's pre-dropping the pallet after we make her think that we're walking through. The pink is now going to be on this side, okay? So we've got a pink right here, the pallet's right here, and remember, we threw our yellow on this side, okay? So now we pick up the yellow. Now, why does she choose to run? She can't 50-50 this. Now, this would obviously be a lot better if we had Cigar Box. If she had good mind games, she probably could have stalled me a bit here without Cigar Box with some 50-50s. But especially with Cigar Box, you can't 50-50 this. If you have good reads with Cigar Box, it's a guaranteed hit because you're going to get hit as you're sliding over. The speed boost with the extra lunge distance, you have to run this, okay? So she pre-drops it. She sees me coming around the left. She starts to run. But what happens? She runs into the pink. That pink that we threw while she was stuck in the pre-drop animation. She has to get slowed down. And in the process, we hit her right as she's sliding over the pallet the second time. Okay? And that is all because of how we strung together the first one. Okay? I'm going to let this play again on its own because I think this one's a really, really good example with how fluid it is too and how quickly everything happens. So keep in mind everything I said. Keep in mind everything I said and look at everything again one last time before we move on to the next example.
Pop this. She has one right here, keep that in mind.
Alright, next example. Okay, this one's really, really good. We're gonna let this play out on its own, and then we'll explain.
Getting ready. Drop this pallet, please. Whoa, you're a greedy little. Ooh, you little. Ooh, okay. You must think I'm other some kind of.
Alrighty. So, alright, so let's explain that a bit, okay? Let's explain this one a bit. Alright. Back up, back up. This one's a little bit longer, so you have to forgive me if I'm taking a bit longer to find the sweet spot. Alright, so here we go. We've got a couple tiles behind me. This is a fairly strong pallet loop, and we've also got her kind of nervous. Since we know that that she's going to be staying at this pallet, we're kind of swiveling left and right as we do in our other examples because we want to kind of make her think that she can't really take the left or the right side out. Although really she possibly could take the right to go to that jungle gym if she really wasn't as nervous possibly. But yeah, that is kind of why we're reloading right here. We're reloading where we have her kind of wedged or sliced at a tile here. It's not the perfect tile slice because the back walls are a bit further away, and she does kind of have some other tiles nearby. But I do kind of digress. It's at least it's a partial tile slicing. It's one in a way that that slightly in effect makes her think that she needs to be here. Okay, which allows us to get this reload. So same thing as before. We set up our yellow early. We put it a little bit further in. But look what happens here, okay? Look what happens. In that literal previous example we had with somebody, we had them right on top of this pallet, ready to pre-drop it, right as we walked up. And we were kind of expecting, literally, just like in that example, this to happen here. That's why we threw this pink, okay? We were literally playing around the idea, because we don't see the aura, that she was going to be right here. As we come around here, she pre-drops the pallet. We have the pink now set up on the other side. We run through our yellow right here, right? And just as we did at the end, when we had to, after we ate that pallet stun, that is what we were expecting to happen the first time, okay? But something different happens. Something completely different from that other example happens this time around. And look what happens. I don't think she actually made it in time. Based on the difference in speed and how quickly we caught up, gang, by the way, I don't actually think she made it to the yellow in time here, but she didn't camp this pallet. By choosing to run further inward toward the yellow and greeting the pallet away, giving up the possession, she left herself vulnerable to getting hit, to be quite honest with you. Look how close we get. We literally were just the tip. We didn't miss when she was on the other side of the pallet. We just swung a little bit too early. That was my miscalculation. I really wanted to get that hit in, and I was really anxious. I just swung a little bit too early. There's a very damn good chance that I would have gotten a pallet stun and we would have downed her if I was a teeny bit more patient in the worst case scenario. Otherwise, we would have just hit her and downed her. Pallet would have still been up. But I swung too early. So what happens when we swing too early, gang? Notice how she doesn't drop it now? She sees that I miss, and she starts running further out. She starts further running out. She doesn't camp the pallet until she sees that I'm running back too. She was probably expecting me to run into the pallet, and then she was going to double back, pallet stun me, break from the pallet tile. That is what I think she was looking to do, but we don't let her do that because we respect the pallet in the area of possession. We don't walk into the area of possession because we know she still has possession, and we want to see if we can change that. So what do we do again? We still have bottles. We throw down a yellow. We start walking in. And this time, look what she is doing. She doesn't do what she did the first time. She respects the possibility that I'm going to hit her before she makes it back to the pallet. This time, she does camp the pallet. And we did not pull out in time. This was a miscalculation on my part. I made a fuck up here. This was a big miscalculation. I was too close when she actually dropped it and she got the stun. And this is very bad. We lose a lot of time here. And not only do we lose time, we lose a lot of the momentum from our setup. We have to recover from the stun. Thankfully, we still have the yellow. Okay, and we have double duration, so I know I don't need to reset up another bottle. We can use the one we have left for a pink. So what I do is I come in for like this. I come in with our extra seconds. I walk in this way like I'm walking around the right side. I pull back out last second. Walk into the pallet here like I'm getting ready to kick. Turn back again like I did originally. Throw the pink to this side. And the extra duration allows us to have just enough time to connect the sped up lunge before she makes it over the pallet. Next example.
We'll go for the...
I'm gonna let it play on its own.
Damn, she's got them speedy shoes on. Oh. Damn, you're not gonna pre-drop that pallet? Oh, you fucked up now? Dead art for me. I know you got it. Oh, damn.
There we go. Just a sec. I just want to make sure. Yeah, everything's right. Okay, so excuse me. You rewind this a bit. So this is a jungle gym tile with a pallet that is not pre-dropped. This is a really, really good example of pallet concession, by the way, and when survivors concede the pallet. Okay, that last one was too. She did concede the pallet as well at the beginning. I don't know if I actually specifically remarked on that, but this is another really good one too. So this Rebecca has sprint burst, and as she's sprint bursting away, we know that we have her at this kind of area of the map. She's not fully on this side yet, where she can get full value to get to a tile over here, get to a tile over there. She starts her sprint burst like this. So what we do, and we respect the idea that she comes around this structure right here, and we start breaking early to the right, and we throw a pink this way. Do you see how her direction now suddenly changes? She was kind of getting ready to go this way as we did that, and then she sees us throw the pink, and she breaks back left, which means she's further sliced more to this side of the map, this corner of the map, and she doesn't get like hardly any value out of her sprint burst because she's like right here, right? We get the hit, and where does she go next? She goes right over here. Now look at this, look at this. She has the potential, if she wanted to drop this pallet right here. She walks right through and drops it, is what she could do, but she doesn't, okay? And we're already, do you see how she's getting ready just to pass it? We're already throwing our yellow, we're not waiting. We're approaching this loop from a few seconds away, and we're already getting ready to throw our yellow. You don't want to be in the moment. You want to be thinking. Right as I hit her right here, gang, right as I hit her, I'm looking at this shit. I'm looking at this window. I'm looking at this pallet. I'm looking at her running toward it. And I'm already swapping. I'm now swapping to my yellow. Throwing the yellow. And look, she gives up pallet possession, okay? She abandons the area of possession, and she runs past it, okay? My yellow is still inactive, and we see her curving to the left. So she's curving to the left, which allows me to go through my yellow. But also, look, we're now setting up this pink right here. This little area right here, we're setting up our pink ahead of time, and she's still curving around this way. So now we get our yellow, look at her go. She wants to put me in a position where if I come from the right, let's assume this. Let's assume I don't go from the left like I did. Let's assume I went through here. Having to vault this window is a very big loss of momentum. You can't use your yellow bottles to speed this up. You're going to take a pretty damn good amount of time without perks in order to get over this vault, which allows her to break from this tile. She can go this way, okay? Or she can go behind her. I think the crane's also behind this too. Ultimately, not very good, right? Let's assume I went this way, I curved right, and then I wanted to come around the back way. Well, you know what she could do? She could, after vaulting the window, she could come all the way around here. She could run all the way back around this side, where I threw my yellow. Even if she doesn't get the benefit from the yellow, she could run around that side of the wall. And then she makes it back to this pallet, as I'm still chasing her. Remember, I'm just chasing her. Drops that pallet. She now has the safety of the pallet. I now have to slice the tile by cutting the jungle gym in half, using even more bottles when I already only have one bottle left to begin with, which means I need to reload, which is going to be a major loss of momentum. She can use that time if she's smart as well to create pressure for herself. So ultimately, very, very bad for me to do that. That's why we come from the left. Look what happens when we come from the left. This bottle, this pink bottle that we threw, this cut off this whole section of the jungle gym, okay? Since we came from the left, she chose to vault the pallet instead of going this way. She locked herself into this side of the jungle gym, where the only direction she can go is forward, and she has to go through all of this, as we're sped up by our yellow coming from the opposite end.
Oh, you fucked up now? Dead art for me.
And the difference in speed meant that she now wasn't able to make it to the pallet, okay? That's how you slice the jungle gym. And that's one of the big reasons, one of the big advantages of playing around survivors that concede possession of the pallet. She could have avoided this if she dropped that pallet. Look, let's go back. Yeah, about right here.
For this person, we'll go for the...
Go back to about right here.
Got them speedy shoes on. Oh.
Look at this. This is all on her. If she dropped this pallet right here, it becomes exponentially more difficult. I would probably have to set up from the left side. I would have to use this wall right here, as well as the gap right here, set up a pink on this side instead of like it's a little bit more over, and I'd have to approach from the left and maybe try to cut her off from the window. That's if she pre-dropped the pallet, but she doesn't. She concedes possession of the pallet,
Damn, you're not gonna
and I'm able to set up around it before she makes it back.
Oh, you fucked up now! Dead art for me, I know you got it. Oh, damn. This is who I want.
Alright, this is another good one. We're going to let this one play out, as usual.
We've kicked one pallet this game, right?
Alright, some things to take into account here. This is a slightly older clip. It's a little bit older. That's why you're seeing the pre-nerf dead hard. The reason why we are including this is because I want to show it's a really, really good example of tile slicing and a really, really good way of showing how to manipulate survivor movement using your bottles. You're going to find in the guide, if you go under the Gideon section, there is a chase blueprint for this chase, as well as a textural analysis breakdown, but I do want to supplement it because of how good of an example it is. We are going to talk about it in this video. So first things first, we see her ahead of time. We're coming on the fadeaway of one of our yellows. We're able to see her with our cigar box add-on. She's right here. We know that we kind of have her. Basically, this is a little miniature example of a tile slice of its own. We've got her cut into this area of the map. We've got her sliced, okay? She's got a doorway right here. But as far as this side, she's not really able to get over here, okay? And we facilitate that with this pink, okay? We throw this pink right here. And look what happens. Look what happens. As we throw this pink right here, she starts coming from this side. She starts coming from the left. And she sees us coming from that same direction on the opposite side of the staircase. So what does she do? She panics and she has to go in the other direction. But what about that, right? Do you see? She can't go this way. She can't go this way. She realizes as she's running here, she's going to run into a pink. She realizes that we're so close that she probably can't make it into the window. So she tries something different. She comes over here, okay? And we're able to hit her before she goes anywhere. But notice this. Notice, do you see how she's running into this? She's running into this because she didn't know the pallet is already down. This is a surprise to her. She expected the pallet to either not be there or she expected it to be up and she was going to be able to play around a pallet that she can now drop. But she can't. The pallet's down there. We recover. She slides over. And look at this. This is a very, very good tile slice. Very, very good. She still counters it well as far as to our movement and the changing of how it is sliced, how it changes dynamically. She plays around that well on her own. But this is really, really good example of tile slicing because ultimately she cannot go anywhere when she gets behind this pallet. She vaults this pallet. We've got this wall right here, okay? And to our left on the other side of this wall there's a closed door. There's a wall and there's a door that's closed that otherwise becomes open when a generator gets done, but it hasn't been done yet. So she wants to take this side. She's going to run into us because of that hole, the hole in the wall right over here. Where we come right over here, look at this. She's got this door right here, right? She can't, if she comes from the left, she's vulnerable because of how we're literally just right here. And we can just take that hole right here, okay? So she vaults, and she's now stuck. Let's back up a bit, not like in the video, but look at this, okay? We start rotating from here because we know that she can't come through here, and we know that there's a little bit of an opening right over here. First things first, we throw the yellow, we start walking from the left. We want to push her to the right. We want to push her a little bit more this way because we're about to come from the same way. We're going to push her back this way again, okay? Because she doesn't have anything but this pallet. because the doorway is closed. She otherwise has to take the pallet, or she has to run forward, and we hit her if she runs forward. The idea with our double bottle combo setup that we were planning ahead of time is that we were going to hit her around the back side of the wall before she made it to this pallet. So we throw down our yellow, we start approaching from this side, okay? We walk a little bit forward, extra, just to see if we could push her, but she's not very, what's the phrase? She's not timid. She sees, I don't know if timid's the right word. She doesn't want to play around here. She sees that we're getting ready to do something and we're coming from this side, so what does she do? She starts going to the right, going to another tile entirely. So what we do is we recognize this. And that yellow bottle that we use to set up with this hole, set up around there, we were going to do with our pink so we could catch her. Instead, we take this yellow and we follow her. We follow her to this adjacent tile right here, okay? And we set up with the yellow here early as well. We also we walk in really, really close. The idea behind this is not that we're actually going to look to vault, it's to squeeze her. We want to slice the tile in as further as we can. We want to push it in on her. So that way that she's only really got this L. She's only got this tight little wall structure here with the window vault, the L of the LT, in order to protect her from getting hit by us, okay? And what we do is after, and remember, as we're approaching from this 2, we've got a yellow that is cooking behind us. It's inactive, but it's cooking, okay? We walk in, we push out, and we are doing a little triangle formation, but as we pulled in, we walk to the right. Walking to the right pushes her further into the left, okay? We're going to back this up just a little bit just to really show that. I really want to show that. Set up with the yellow, walk in. This is the pusher left. Do you notice how she starts walking a bit to the left, kind of, as well as we start going to the right? We wanted to do that. We wanted to do that so we could get this pink set up early, okay? We throw this pink right there, and we want to hide ourselves too. Okay? After we throw that pink, we walk behind this pillar because we want to hide ourselves. We don't want her to see us because we can see her. If she can't see us and we can see her, we're able to use information that she doesn't have to play around information that she has but doesn't really fully know what to do with. Okay, let me really rephrase that. By choosing to go behind the wall, we are able to have access to information that she doesn't have. We're able to play around the fact that she doesn't have that information. And we're able to make presumptions on what decisions she's going to make because of that in order to capitalize on her making a mistake to get the hit. So that's why we come to hide behind this wall. So we pull behind the wall, and then what we do here too is we also kind of pull behind the wall as well over here. We pull a little bit behind the wall, but we set up the pink on that side because we were getting ready with that yellow that we did throw. The idea was we wanted to come from the right, even though it's longer, because we wanted to slice the tile in a way where she couldn't abandon it. Because she's got 2 doorways, okay? She could take this window right here, the window that's on the left side, all right, this window right here. If she would have gone back, she could have possibly, if we weren't able to hit her in time, take it, run out that doorway from there, or she could run and take this doorway if she has enough early distance as well, if we approach from the left. And that is, I think, what she was expecting. I think she was expecting us to come from the left, and that is why she commits in the way that she does. Remember, she doesn't have access to her R's. She doesn't see her R's. We do, though. And so that's how we were able to identify very early that she was committing to try to abandon the tile in this way. And that's where this pink that we threw right here, that's where it becomes so valuable. She's now forced to run through the pink. And this was, before they had, this was back when Dead Hard was usable for distance. So, obviously she wouldn't have got this close to the pallet, but pay attention to the debris here, gang. Pay attention to this. This is a pallet spawn that is otherwise very, very powerful if it's still up. And this is an open doorway. This doorway right here, I'm pretty damn certain if the gen isn't done, this doorway is closed. But when they do that and this doorway becomes open, it creates this situation right here where if they are able to abandon this LT wall jungle gym through this doorway and they have this pallet available to them, you're just SOL. You're going to add 10 to 15 extra seconds by improperly slicing the tile in a way where they're able to reach the pallet before you catch them when they abandon, and you're going to lose a lot of time. That is why tile slicing is extremely important, okay? So let's back up to really show what I mean by that, to reemphasize. With the yellow right here, come around like this. Pink over here, come back around like this. Pink here. And see, look, we have the tile sliced in a way where she can't go anywhere. She doesn't have any safety. We hit her before she makes it to the pallet. Next example. This one's really, really good. By the way, we are at the tail end. I think there's only 2 to 3 more here. Excuse me. You know what? I know this is a very long video. This is actually going on a lot longer than I thought it would. And again, I am shooting this in one take. So, let's see. I'm going to let it play out on its own.
This dude's probably like, what do I even do?
Yeah, I can't believe I did that. Okay, so let's go back. Rewind. I do. Right? Alright, so similar situation here. Similar situation with reloading. Again, notice that I'm reloading at a pallet tile. I am not reloading when I'm chasing, because what we've done right now is this pallet is already down, okay? Do you see this pallet is already pre-dropped? We've got Leon semi-sliced here, okay? We've got him semi-sliced in between, because if he goes to the left, it's not entirely too strong, but we're going to be able to really catch up to him as well. And if he goes to the right, it's also a similar situation. He's just got an LT Wall Jungle Gym. What he's trying to do right here, he's a live gamer. Keep this in mind too. This is a very, very big important understanding to keep into mind with how this Leon is playing. This Leon's got live, okay? So, not only do we have him kind of sliced here, but in a way where he's not really able to get a lot of distance regardless when it comes to going anywhere before we hit him, you know, in between us reloading and everything. But the best play for him is what he's doing, essentially. He needs to get a window vault, okay? So we get this reload. He's looking to go from the right. Do you see how he's coming from the left here as we start going from the right? He is looking for a way to abandon this pallet loop. He wants to abandon it, find something that he can vault, and that he can get the speed boost. That's what he's looking for, and our movement is denying him that ability. So we reload, we throw a yellow. This was not a very good yellow, by the way. I'm not the happiest with this yellow because it ends up landing on top of the spool. I wanted to get it kind of near the bottom. I ended up looking a little bit too high up, and that means that it kind of goes and it blooms a bit more than I wanted it to. And I was a little bit nervous that it blooms so far that he would be able to reach it. Because look at this. It goes kind of around right here, okay? He's more over here. He's not in range of the yellow. If you're curious, he is not in range, but at least I'm pretty damn sure he didn't make it in range. I'm like fairly certain, but it's still possible. So what do? We don't hesitate. We throw down that yellow. Because of how it bloomed, we knew we'd be able to reach it as when we approached it when we did. You know, we didn't wait any longer than we needed to. We have an understanding of the inactive time, and so we started approaching properly. And we throw this pink, okay? Let's rewind a few seconds. Look at this pink here that we throw up here, this follow-up. We throw the yellow. We realize what we do. We give it a little bit of necessary time because we need to. And we throw this pink, okay? Look at this pink here. You see this pink? There's a good chance if he didn't have the yellow. If he had the yellow, this is moot. This pink will do nothing. But let's assume he didn't pick up the yellow. That pink very likely would have meant that we would have hit him if he committed to the pallet still. He would have gotten an injury, but he would have still vaulted the window, and he would have gone in that direction. Okay? But the idea behind this pink was to play around the slight mistiming of the yellow, and I do think if he committed to the loop, and he didn't get sped up by the yellow, because it's a little bit hard sometimes, y'all, to interpret the gas clouds. You know, that's kind of why it's just something you have to understand. The gas clouds aren't 100% accurate in a way. There's like, it kind of changes a bit how you look at it. It's a little bit hard to explain, but you just kind of need to know, I guess. Right now, the best way I can explain is you kind of just need to know what the clouds are really shaped like on the ground. But I digress. Back to this example. Back to the example. We get this pink here. He doesn't commit. He goes for the window, okay? He gets the lithe. Do you see this? He takes the lithe. He starts running with his lithe W. That's how it may look like he doesn't go as far as he should. Keep in mind that we're sped up, okay? So as far, and he doesn't get intoxicated, does he? Let me real quick check. I don't think he got intoxicated here. Yeah, he doesn't go too far enough. So, yeah, remember, keep in mind, he's got a lithe, but we've got yellow, so he doesn't close as much distance as he otherwise would have. And look what's going on right here. We're already setting up our yellows. And real quick, if just in case I haven't mentioned it yet, or anyone hasn't heard me mention this chase is a very damn good example of why I both like running extra bottle add-ons and why I like running Zancian Tactics. You will see, if you look at this chase, feel free to rewind it, look at it again a couple times. There's a lot of information being shown here. A lot of window vaults, a lot of pallets. I am able to plan around this ahead of time. And I'll explain that as I go, but I did want to remark on that real quick, since I haven't done that yet. This is a very, very good example of both extra bottles and Zancian Tactics. It's what allows us to have just the momentum that we need without stopping to get these 2 health states, because otherwise we would have needed to reload. Okay, so anyways, we start chasing. He's got the lithe. We set up with this yellow. Look at how early we're setting up this yellow. Do you see where Leon is by the time we're throwing this yellow right now? Look how far away Leon is from the pallet. Look at this. He's got at least 2 seconds or so. Oh, shit. Oh, no, I made a boo-boo. 1 sec. I accidentally went forward. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh. What am I doing? Okay, here we go. So look at this. Look how far away he is, okay? We throw this yellow. 1, 2. It's about 2 seconds by the time he gets to the pallet. It's about 1.5 to 2 seconds before he actually gets there, okay? And as we're doing that, we're going to let it replay again. We start throwing the pink. Bottle's still inactive. Yellow is not active yet. And we're already throwing this pink. And look at his feet. Look at his feet. As we start going to the right, he's already trying to make sure he doesn't fall behind in distance, and he starts stuttering to the left. But what do? We throw the pink. And as we're recovering, look, right as we're about ready to swing, he starts the vault slide animation. We hit him. We hit him while he's still sliding. And look at this pink, okay? Look at this pink. What does he have to do? He has to go to the right. He can't go to the left. By being forced to go to the right, look at this. He can't make it to this pallet loop to our left that we see with the Zancians, and he cannot make it to Kill Shack. He has to go to the right. And what does he have to him? He's got probably 3 tiles over. He's got a couple jungle gems, but immediately right here, he's got a pallet loop. And we see this because of our Zancians, and we're able to play around it because of our extra bottles. So what do? We throw a yellow. This yellow flies over these boxes, okay? Look where the yellow lands. Look at this. This is on one side of the pallet loop. You've got, this is I think a Z tile. You've got it going this way. It's going to have the pallet, which goes across right here, and you've got another one right here. Or it's either a Z or an H tile, but I digress. We were set up this yellow this early. Do you see how he's coming around it too? As we're getting ready to do this, look, he's kind of positing himself to want to run this. He kind of wants to commit to this loop initially. But then we start throwing this pink, okay? Look at this pink. Oh, shit. Look at this pink. So we get this here, and right as we start coming from the left, right while our pink is mid-flight, he leaves from this loop. He reads the writing on the wall. That pink lands on that opposite side, which means that he either has to commit to a 50-50 on the pallet where our bonus speed means that we hit him, and he probably realizes that. These were not bad players in this game. I do remember this game. It was not too long ago at the time of filming this. These were good players, and he very likely saw the writing on the wall, and he knew with the yellow, if he 50-50, we were going to hit him, and he knew with the pink, especially on the other side, if he tried to run around, we were going to hit him. So what did he do? He tries to make it to these jungle gems, right? He starts running in this direction. But here's the thing. He's got nothing. He's got nothing. He's just too separated from everything. We just strung together our bottles without stopping, pure momentum, in a way where he just wasn't able to do anything about it. He had to keep running, but it didn't really protect him. And I know you could technically rewind this, but I just for posterity, for people that are just kind of playing through this normally, the video normally, I do want to rewind it myself for you guys to see it again, just real quick. Just look at how fluid everything here. This is really where momentum. This is a very big important deal of momentum here. Look at the momentum.
This dude's probably like, what do I even do?
Can't believe I did that. Alright, so again, there was no stopping there. I didn't have to wait on my yellow bottle, you know? There was no waiting involved. I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly making a game plan. All of those different steps, from the walking to the left to the right, to throwing the yellow when I did, walking from the right to the left, getting the hit at the pallet, pushing in this way. This is a course of action, gang. It's steps to a process. Steps to a process is shown there, steps in the other examples, and that's kind of what lets you keep the momentum. Is you're planning a bunch of steps ahead of time and you're executing them in sequence to where you just don't stop. When you don't really have a plan in mind, gang, when you don't really have a course of action, you're kind of flying at the wing of your seat. You're not really acting with a means in mind to accomplish your objective, right? If your objective is to hit the survivor and you're not thinking about how to use your bottles in a way to accomplish that, you're not really operating with any sense of tactics, you know? That's really a problem. That's not how you can't I don't really see, it doesn't make sense how you can consistently hold momentum and keep pressure if you just aren't really thinking through things. So that's why it's very important to really look at things in this manner, especially since yellow bottles, you can't really use your yellow bottles without a plan in mind, you know? Because you have to play around that time that they spend inactive. You have to factor that into your course of action. But let's move forward. I don't want to digress too much. I like to really cover some things, but we do have a couple more examples here, and this is a very long, much longer than I thought it'd be. Okay, this is a great example. I love this example. This is probably one of the best chases I have ever had in DBD. Probably one of the best chases ever. I love this chase. This one is in the guide too. I've got textual analysis breakdown. I've got the chase blueprints, but we are covering it here because this is a very, very good video example when it comes to things like concession of the pallet. Let's see, area of possession, double bottle combo setups, and just understanding both sides. This survivor was really damn good. First things first, we're gonna let it play on its own.
Because not having cigar box, what that means is that I take a lot of inefficient movement. Wow, dude. He's actually really good, okay. This Jeff is actually freaking wild. I respect this Jeff out the fucking ass. Don't do that. Dead hard for me, I know you got it.
There we go. Okay, real quick, hold on. Okay, everything, all right. Ooh. Going a little bit too far forward here. Going a little bit too far forward here. Let's back up a bit. Okay. So first things first, this example. We're gonna actually fast forward a few seconds here. So yeah, let's see. Hold on a second. Yeah, I was a little bit myself here, gang. Okay. Forgot how long this shit was. Like I said, this was a tough chase, y'all. This was not an easy chase, so... Alright, so anyways, we're approaching from another hallway. We're coming into this room. This is one of my favorite tiles on Leary's. I love this pallet loop. It's a very, very fun one, especially with how like I said, this chase that I had with this guy makes me love this shit even more. This is probably my favorite loop on the map. But anyways, first things first. We know that the David is right here. Look at David real quick, okay? Let's look at David. Coming around the corner.
Is that I take a lot...
Alright, look at him. He's dancing around right here. He's literally he's dancing on the area of possession. Okay, do you see the area of possession of the pallet? He's dancing on that shit. He loves it. That's his dance floor. So what we do is we come over here. We throw down our yellow. We see that he's coming around this way. Okay, he's trying to bait us to coming into him. And look what happens. See, he has enough distance between him initially, and not only does he to avoid getting hit, but not only that, do you notice how he doesn't drop the pallet? See, we don't have the angle if we chase him without throwing any bottles. If we just held W, he's going to get that yellow. And we're going to hit him, and he's going to have that yellow with the speed boost, and he's going to go 2 to 3 tiles over. That's why we didn't want to just commit like we did. We did not want him reaching this yellow because this is a very vulnerable area of the map. Let's go back. Actually, no, we'll see it when we get a better angle. One sec. Actually, no, we'll do it like right here. Look at this. Look at this. He's got, this goes to the exit gate. He can't go out this way. He's got this doorway right here. He's got right behind us, if he's somehow able to get behind the table, right, which is where that yellow bottle could be. He literally, if we enabled him to do what he wanted, we would have chased him through this table. He would have picked up the yellow right as we hit him right about here, and he would have either gone this way or he would have gone that way. Ultimately, very, very bad outcome. We would have to chase him holding W. He does have pre-nerf Dead Hard, by the way, too. So as far as having to chase him to another tile, we'd have to be setting up around another tile while also keeping that into account. Ultimately, a very large extension of the chase time just to get the down, and not very good if we can avoid it, okay? So what happens what we want to do instead, I should say, is we don't want him to reach this yellow. We want to keep him at this pallet, and we still want to be able to hit him. We want to accomplish all of those objectives. First things first, we throw the yellow, we come this way. We notice immediately. First thing, one of the things we notice is that he doesn't drop the pallet. But in addition to that, we notice he's not going to drop the pallet. Since we have this angle that we close, this distance as we close it is, we wanted to be smart and efficient with our time, and we wanted to preemptively set up earlier around the idea that he drops it again, or not again, excuse me. We turn and we throw this pink because we want to set up for the possibility that when we come from this other angle, that he does drop the pallet then. And if he does, we will have this pink, okay? I'll explain what I mean in just a second. Let me show you. So look, we come from this way, okay? This pink is right there. Do you see this pink right here that we just threw? We have this yellow right here. We were hoping that right here, he would have been right here to drop the pallet. But what does he do, gang? He does just like what he did earlier, and he just runs around the other side. And what is he trying to do? He's trying to get to this yellow. He's trying to get to this yellow. We can't go too far in going this way because not only will he get the speed, but we can't also, if he's too close to the pallet, we have to respect it because we can't get the stun. If we get the stun, he can use the distance. We have to either go around, which likely means we have to kick this pallet, and he can go into this doorway. He can then come around, go out the other way to the main courtyard, or if we happen to have been on the other side, like I said, go through the other doorway. We have to respect this, and we have to respect the fact that he did not drop it. Even though we have this pink and we're just ready and we were hoping he would drop it. We wanted him to drop it with this pink right here. We could come back around this back, which would have trapped him in the left side right here. We would have been able to force him around the back because you can't 50-50 this. He either would have had to risk 50-50ing it and getting the hit, or he would have gone through our pink, coming around these chairs, and we would have hit him before we made it back to the pallet, okay? That is what we were hoping that he would do, and being vulnerable around here would mean that we would have been able to follow up without losing distance going for that next health state, even if he abandoned this tile. But again, he doesn't do that. Instead, he starts coming around the back behind the desk. So what do we have to do instead? We come around the back again, and we throw a pink right here, okay? We throw a pink right here, and he gets slowed. Our hope was we could hit him with the yellow and the pink before he made it back into the area of possession of the pallet, and he would have been able to stun us with the pallet. Our hope was we were going to make it in time. But what happens, gang? We don't fucking make it anywhere close. We don't make it anywhere close. Do you see how he's now all the way over there? I now realize at this point that chasing him through the pallet is not going to accomplish any injuries. If I am going to hit him, chasing him directly through here, under the area of possession in front of the desk, it's going to cost something to get that injury. And what it costs might not be worth it. So instead, I change up my strategy. And this is all momentum, by the way, because remember, I'm not stopping. I'm not thinking to myself, what do I do? I'm this whole time moving. And you gotta really get the practice and experience to kind of figure out on the move, to establish a new course of action ahead of time. Because this is what we now realize we needed to do. We realized, and since we couldn't set up right here on the front of the desk, we had to push him through here instead. We had to actually push him here. So we invert our process. We invert our double bottle combo. And look what happens. We throw a yellow right here, and we walk in. And as simple, remember, he doesn't drop this pallet. He starts going around. But look what happens now. Look what happens now. We know he doesn't want to drop this pallet. We know that we can't chase him through this pallet without risking something. We set up the yellow here. We walk in to push him to the left. And then what do? I throw the pink right here. I throw the pink right here, because what happens if we do this? Since he doesn't drop this pallet, and he comes back around like we know he does before, he's going to get slowed down by this pink. We're going to hit him. Even though he's going through the yellow, we are going to hit him, okay? But look at where we're at. We're looking this way intentionally, because we know if he goes through this way, we'll see him. We now turn because we want to see if he's going to go left. We see that he ran through us. So we now look to go right. We see that instead of going into this hallway, he breaks back to the left. And look at where we're at now, gang. Look at where we're at. Look at where we're at. We were able to injure him here without losing anything. If he would have broken right through that doorway, we might have still been able to catch him. I think part of the reason why he didn't go through that doorway is because he saw we were looking in that direction and he was anticipating on us following up and downing him before he made it anywhere. He wanted to see if he could make a play around this pallet since he never dropped it to begin with. I think that was the reasoning behind why he went back, but by virtue of him doing that, it enabled us to tile slice him in perfectly for the down. Because look at this, right? Again, this is the strongest portion of this tile, is being on this side right here. Because if he wants to go left, we can go left and hit him. If he wants to go right, we can go there and hit him. He can't just abandon out the back because that's a dead zone near the exit gates. This is essentially, this little loop right here, this is where we've got him sliced in, where we've got the tile sliced, okay? So what happens now? Now we're expecting him to be less greedy. We're expecting him to want to be safe. He's on death's door, technically, right? He's injured. He's not going to want to go down. He may have dead hard, but he's respecting the fact that we hit him now. Okay? Because look at this. We reload and we're reloading. Why are we reloading right here? Because again, it's like I said, tile slice. He can't go anywhere. Otherwise, we cancel, get the hit without any bottles. We reload. He's sitting on the pallet now. Do you see this? Now he's sitting on the pallet. He's sitting on the pallet. He's not playing any games. Because last time he played games, you know, he won some pretty shitty prizes. We had the bottle set up to play around that. He knows that we've adapted. He knows that we've adapted to hitting him without him dropping the pallet. So here's what we do. We set up the yellow right there, and look what happens. He pre-drops the pallet. This pallet is now down. Look how far away. Look how far away we are from the pallet too. This is a guy who is playing very, very greedy, albeit very damn smart. He played this so damn well. But he was not at all concerned with getting this pallet out the way. But after we hit him and we start doing this, his playstyle completely changed. That pallet is down early as shit. He wasn't concerned about getting the stun. He was concerned about creating leverage and distance between us using that pallet. But here's the thing about that. Just like we were going to do the first time, remember when he didn't drop the pallet and I threw that pink over here? We've got this yellow cooking right here. So what do? We walk in like we're gonna kick the pallet, and we throw the pink. And look at this too. I want to remark on this because he did it, because this is a very, very big important detail. He does that flashlight, okay? He thought we were gonna kick this pallet. He was setting up what he wanted to do. He thought that we were actually gonna kick this pallet. He was hoping that he could get the blind and he could create distance by running through this doorway. But instead, what happened was he lost distance, attempting a blind that was not going to be possible as we set up our pink on this side. And look at this. We come through, we pick up our yellow. He's now running through the pink. Okay, do you see this? He's running through the pink. But here's what we know. We know based on the distance that even with our yellow and our pink, with just one bottle alone and the current distance between us, we are not going to hit him before he makes it to this pallet if we come from the left side. So what do? We throw another pink right here and we come from the right. And this is what happens. He does not attempt the 50-50. He probably respects the fact that we know what we're doing with our yellows. He probably respects the fact that we're placing it on the other side and maybe put together the possibility of a 50-50 does exist. So instead of attempting to get 50-50 off the vault, he runs around the back. But look at this. We refresh our yellow. Remember how we had the yellow again? Let's go back here 10 seconds.
I respect this, Jeff. Out the fucking
Yellow's down. We get it through the pink. We're sped up. It starts counting down. We throw the pink. And look at this. The yellow refreshes, okay? So we basically get an extra couple seconds early without needing another yellow, without actually needing any yellow duration add-ons at all. And he starts running around. And that extra bottle gives us just a little bit of extra duration that we need in order to ensure that he would not make it to this pallet. See, look, right here, he uses Dead Hard for distance. He was hoping that I was going to lunge and miss, because otherwise there's really nothing that he could do. We were going to hit him before he makes it to that pallet, okay? And that is initially why we threw that one pink at the beginning. Because look at this. We're gonna go back just so y'all can really see what I was expecting here. Let's go back about right here. Yeah, about right here. Okay. See, look at this. This is what we were like when we got that set up for the going for the injury to the down near the end. That is what we were looking to do right here. Look at this. Throw the yellow. We expected him to throw the pallet. We threw this pink. We were literally going to come around and literally do what we did at the end. We were going to do that at the beginning. We would have came around right here, threw the pink right here, come back around. Literally the exact same thing. We were expecting him to drop the pallet, and he didn't. And it's what allowed him to take all this extra time.
This Jeff is actually freaking wild. I respect this Jeff out the fucking ass. Don't do that. Get hard for me, I know you got it.
Alright. I think this is the last example, by the way, gang. Whew. But let's see. We're going to let this play out on its own. This chase is the exact same loop as that last example. And what I'm really trying to do here is I'm really trying to show, at least I wanted to put this one here. It's not really too fancy. I just wanted to kind of show what distance survivors... This is also pre-nerf to a lot of changes too, so survivors don't get as much distance when they get hit. The speed boost from injury was longer at the time of the of this chase, but I wanted to kind of show, excuse me. I wanted to show when the survivor has this pallet already down and you're approaching a survivor that you have sliced at this tile, I wanted to show you how quickly you can follow all this shit up, okay? So let's go back about 10 seconds. All right. Just wait till the end of this thing because it's just faster to do this. All right. So let's look at this chase. Look at how quickly we're going to let it play on its own. This pallet is already dropped at the same tiles we did with this David, but because it's already down, that means we don't have to play around the area of possession, okay? Pallets that are upright are, in my opinion, unless the survivor concedes possession of that pallet, upright pallets are more dangerous than pre-drop pallets. Because an upright pallet with a survivor that's nearby is a lot of threat for lost distance. But if the pallet is pre-dropped and it's not physically obstructing your way of going to a certain area, if it's not like blocking a pathway, then pre-drop pallets, if it's possible to set up around it, are not that threatening because it's not, again, it's something you have counterplay to. It's kind of like for other killers, the only real best example, let's say it's like a pallet loop that's unsafe for anyone else where you don't have to kick the pallet, right? You're not really concerned with kicking the pallet because the pallet loop's unsafe. That's basically why I prefer pallets that are pre-dropped versus pallets that are upright. Obviously, pallets that are broken are more preferable to all of that, but, that's to the point of when it's necessary to kick the pallet, and that's a whole other topic entirely that doesn't really fit into this video. But let's look at this real quick. I don't think I played it out on its own. Let's look at this. All right. Yeah, that is the last clip too, thankfully. But anyways, as you can see in this example, let's go back a few seconds here. Right over here. All right, so let me put these on. This will make it a little bit easier to hear. All right, so look, he throws down this pallet. He already throws down this pallet. There's no hesitation. He sees me coming up. He wants this pallet down now. He's not planning to play around the area of possession. He's just not even concerned about possession at all, or even the idea of conceding it and trying to stun me afterward. He just throws it down. This pallet is now pre-dropped at this loop. So what do? We establish, once we see this is down, we already have our yellows out anyways. Without hesitation, we just have the experience. So what do? We're not stopping. We're still walking forward. We throw this yellow, and what do? We push this way. He comes around the back, okay? He comes around the back. We throw this pink. And he he was a little bit too far behind as we were doing this. He didn't have as much distance as the David at the time. And what does he notice? What does he notice as he's going through this pink? Do y'all see this? He stops. He knows. He knew at this point he's not making it to this fucking pallet, okay? Once he started going through this pink, he started realizing what was up. So he stops. And what does he do? Styptic. That's what this was.
Ooh, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Okay.
It honestly caught me off guard. The moxie on him of having a Styptic here. So yeah, we remark on that and we start chasing him. It gets him a lot of distance. So what do we do here with this yellow? Okay, we throw this yellow, not just to close distance, but look at this. Not only does this yellow close distance, but we're already setting up here. We're setting up. We throw a pink right over here because we know he's going to go through this direction. We get the slowdown. We don't actually need anything but that initial slowdown and the kind of vision distortion effect. We come this way because we want him to pre-drop this pallet. We want to make him think that this is going to give him the safety. However, what is it that I've mentioned earlier? When you have to stop to throw down a pallet, you cannot create any more distance. You are stuck in place and he can't go anywhere. So what happens? Look where he is as we're coming around. He started to leave. See these scratch marks? He started to leave, but he knew we were coming around, and he realized as he started to leave, he was not making it to this doorway, or if he was, we were hitting him before he made it anywhere else. So what does he do? He runs back to the pallet. He's going to try to see if he can 50-50 it. And we have the extra speed boost still, the tail end of the speed boost. And I made sure that I didn't just not enough. I didn't leave enough of the speed boost to see if I could get it with the lunge. I went enough with it under the expectation that I would be fine on my own without the yellow, but without going too far as well, committing to this left side. I wanted to make him panic. Because this guy was a pretty good survivor to my recollection. He wasn't bad. I didn't want to undercommit on this left side. If I undercommit and he doesn't vault, then I'm now going to need to set up my bottles. And from looks of it, I have 0, I think, at the moment. Yeah, I have 0 bottles at the moment. So I would have had to reload, you know, and if he's smart, he could probably vault the pallet with my slowed down movement speed, go out through this doorway. Or I would have to, without any bottles, get the 50-50, and depending on how that goes, that can add an extra 10 to 12, 15 seconds on the chase. So we were really trying to avoid that, avoid extending the chase unnecessarily, and we used the tail end of our speed boost here to make him think that he needed to vault, and we had just enough in order to get him as he was on the other side. Look at that come through. And remember, you're stuck in a recovery animation. When you vault that pallet, you can't just go boom, 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 boom. It's more like boom, 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 okay? So there's like a little bit of a delay between when they slide back over again. We took advantage of that with the understanding that with how fast it looked like we were approaching that he needed to vault, and we were able to hit him in time, okay? And that is the last of this example. I did want to show this one, like I said, because this one does really show, we're going to just play the beginning of this again, how when you have the practice and understanding, even at a pallet like this, when you want something like this to be down, how you do not need to stop, okay? Throws down the pallet. We're still walking forward. Throw down the yellow. Throw down the pink. Come around this way. And that's the wrap right there, okay? And that's all the examples that I wanted to look at for this video. So to kind of wrap up some closing thoughts, again, the whole purpose of this video is to really, really show what I'm all thinking in mind. This ended up being a lot longer than I thought. I ended up wanting, I guess, to be as comprehensive as possible for this video. So maybe this video could work a little bit as a supplement for some of the areas of this guide, although I really do think that I put a lot of the areas that I did cover in the textual analysis are probably as clear as well. So, you know, pick your poison. If you feel like you don't need, you know, if this answers a lot of your questions, this is good enough on its own, I'm really glad. But again, the purpose of this video, I wanted to really break down those aspects of both the chase and use them to really illustrate what the bottles are used for, your yellows and your pinks, and how to do that. Okay, that's essentially what the purpose of this was. This to show you the roles and the jobs that yellows and pinks are meant to serve and how they're meant to accomplish them. So I think that's about a wrap for this video. Again, the rest of this guide will be coming out probably around Christmas if you are seeing this early. But yeah, that about wraps up using both your bottles. Again, some of these chase examples are going to be in the guide itself, but I just wanted to, for posterity, provide some explanations here. And yeah, that's it, everybody. I'll catch you guys for the next part, and bye bye.